everybody, it's the Gameosity podcast. I'm Andrew, and I'm kind of sick of these personal facts at the beginning of every episode.
No more facts.
Then one of you has to introduce yourselves.
Oh, yeah. I'm Jess.
I'm Josh.
And today, we're going to be talking about the topic of board game tourism. And if that doesn't immediately make sense to you, well, just like all of our podcast topics, we let ourselves interpret that however we chose, and I'm sure we'll get into the guts of it as we go on. But before we get into that, how's everybody doing? What's everybody been up to?
Getting by, surviving the apocalypse. Yeah, things are looking up, actually. Seems like people are feeling a little better, a little more optimistic, right? Maybe we'll be able to have some game days again soon.
That would be nice.
Would be nice. We're starved for contact. Yeah, it is nice that things seem to be headed in the right direction broadly, and we hope that everybody who's listening has at least a better than neutral time of things right now. But as far as what we've been up to lately, what we're going to talk about right now are our hot ones. So hot ones are the games that either we've played recently or we'd like to play or are just sort of on our minds for some reason. Not necessarily new games or anything like that. Not the hotness. They are hot ones. Josh, what's your hot one right now?
So a game I played recently was one I was really excited about playing. I finally got it to the table. It's a relatively new game. I don't know if you guys have played it. Cubitos?
Is this an Alderac?
I think it's called Cubitos.
So I thought it was called Cubitos as well because it uses all these little dice, and it seemed to me to suggest that these were characters, that that there are little characters called Cubitos. But then I read the instructions, and Cubitos is actually the location. It's not the name of the people. It's not a plural thing. Cubitos is the name of the world in which these things exist, which made me think that it's not pronounced Cubitos but Cubitos. However, we are dealing with an entirely fictional landscape, and so honestly, they can determine how it's pronounced however they like. And I don't know what that is exactly. Well, we're shooting in the dark here.
I feel like board games often need a pronunciation guide.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been curious about this one. You liked it?
I did like it a lot. It's a racing game, and I do like racing games. And plus, it's a game in which you roll big fistfuls of dice, which is so satisfying.
Oh yeah, that's one of my trigger phrases. Like, that feels good to hear.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you start with, and there are all these little miniature dice, which are a lot of fun. You start with 9 dice, I think it is. Yeah. And you just go up from there. So you're really, you're really rolling tons of dice. And, you'll gain some, you'll lose some. They have special abilities. And what I like about it is that they all only hit on certain faces. So all of them, no matter what the dice are, they only have certain sides that have anything on them. And, the most that a die will have is 3 sides with something indicated. So, at least half the time, these dice will come up blank. But as long as just one die comes up with something on it, you get to continue rolling. And so it's this interesting dynamic where it's a little bit of a push your luck, because if you ever roll all the dice and they all come up with blank faces, you bust. So you're doing these calculations in your head. How many dice do I have left? How many faces do each have? And, is it worth it to roll again? Even if just one face comes up, I'm okay. It's a great game. I really enjoy it. And the symbols on each of the dice, what they indicate, the icons, what they indicate changes from game to game. So each die in the game has, I think, 6 different cards that define what the icons do. So in the course of your game, you just choose one of those 6 cards. And for this game, that's what this die does. But on the next game, you could choose another one of those 6 cards. You can shuffle them. You can, they have recommended sets of which powers you want to use for each of the dice. I liked it a lot. I only played it once, but it was very exciting.
Sounds like there's a lot of variety to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because in addition to all the different definitions of what the dice do, it comes with 4 different racetracks, and I guarantee you they're going to add more.
So the other game that comes to mind for me immediately with this whole idea of the dice, the faces having their values basically reassigned from game to game is Quarriors.
I didn't know they did that. I never played that game. That also does that?
Quarriors is very much that. It's each die is basically a variable like creature, and what attributes that creature has, like what happens when you roll a given face, changes from game to game. And as you say, at setup, you're picking essentially what powers this suit has and what each of these die faces translates into. I liked Quarriors because the idea of like the giddy feeling of fistfuls of dice, it just like it's so something I love. It was just the tiniest bit fussy, and at the end of the day, it ended up not being. I don't think it was Jess's favorite. I think that's sort of why it sort of like drifted off with us. But I liked Quarriors. I thought it was a neat concept, and it sounds like I'm stumbling over even what to call the game. Cube, I toss. I've really can't wait to get my hands on it. Actually, it's one of the ones that I've been staring at on my wish list for a while now.
Yeah, it's very nice, and it's a great production too. I'm glad I have it.
Cool, very cool. Looking forward to trying it. Jess, what's your hot one right now?
Well, my hot one we got not too long ago, and we still haven't opened up. It's Honey Buzz.
Yeah, it was back during a phase where I was just buying all the bee-themed games I could find.
And I love it.
Well, that's why.
Apparently, it's this worker bee placement game where you're basically the queen bee and you've gone into business selling honey to the local wildlife. And so the whole game, you're trying to expand your hive by drafting honeycomb tiles, and you're foraging for nectar and pollen, and then you're selling your honey at the bear market. It sounds delightful.
Did you say you're selling your honey at the bear market? Yeah, that's great.
It's also gorgeous. Like, it has this beautiful pastel color palette. I love it.
Yeah, that's I wasn't kidding when I said I was buying games that were bee themed, but it looked gorgeous and it looked really like fun, and yeah, I can't wait to tear into it.
Yeah, I've heard good things. It's gotten some good reviews, and I did hear that about the production too. That it's really wonderful.
Yeah, like everything, the components, all the art. It has this beautifully light and whimsical feeling to it.
That's so appealing right now. Like, honestly, that is just so appealing.
Totally my jam.
Well, my hot one right now is a game that we've played a couple of years ago. Haven't played it since, and it's just been on my mind lately, possibly for the same reason. It's just sort of like a pastoral and relaxing experience. I've been thinking a lot about Freshwater Fly.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Yeah, and the irony, of course, is that, well, I have a dubious relationship with fishing, but Freshwater Fly is this fishing game currently being published by Bellwether Games, I believe, and it is just this beautifully presented, really sort of an interesting dice drafting game is really what it is. It's a game where at the beginning of the round, there's a pool of dice that get rolled, and on your turn, you're drafting one of those dice, and that determines both how you're fishing and the way certain actions work during the course of your turn. And there's the calculus of it is casting into the river and wanting to make sure it's a set collection game ultimately, and wanting to make sure that you're landing on the fish cards that you want. And there's this whole setting of the hook, and there's this really neat player board component that is a reel that spins, and where it lands depends on how strong the fish is versus the die that you use to hook the fish, and where it lands determines bonus actions. It's this neat little puzzle, and it has a very clever player order determiner so that at the end of the round, you add up the dice that you've drafted, and if you have the lowest sum, which means that you've had sort of the weakest hand to work with, essentially, then you go first. And I just think that's a clever mechanism.
And this is a game that you prefer this one to Coldwater Crown, right? Because they're somehow related.
They both have fish.
Yes, they both have fish. They're definitely different game mechanics, right? They are completely different. But Coldwater Crown and Freshwater Fly, in addition to having sort of the same cadence in their titles, were designed by the same folks. So that's the connection there.
I have to say, I like this one better, though.
Mechanically speaking, I like Coldwater Crown, quite frankly, but I like Freshwater Fly more.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about this one before. I haven't played it, but I'm interested to try it. It sounds really neat, and a good springtime game too.
Yeah, I guess so. Like I say, I have a very dubious relationship with fishing. I've gone fishing a handful of times. I've rarely had what I would call a great time fishing.
Yeah.
Have you ever caught a fish?
No.
That might be why.
Yeah, no.
What, you think like with my bad attitude, I'm not catching fish.
Nah, I went fishing once in my life with my grandfather, and the whole thing was a disaster. You know, I had no interest in worms; they seemed gross to me, and I had no interest in torturing them by impaling them on a hook. It was just, it was one of those situations where my family wanted to be more of a man than I ever had any interest in being.
I've gone fishing a bunch of times, but I never really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And yet there are people for whom it is absolutely their favorite.
I mean, it is everything that goes around fishing sounds great. Going out on a boat, spending a nice quiet day, hanging out, talking, seeing some nice scenery. That all sounds great.
Yeah. I feel the same way about golf, right? Like, I love a golf course. I love driving around in a little buggy around a golf course. It's nice to be out under the sun and everything. I just have no desire to hit the little ball in the little hole.
Now, mini golf, that's a totally different story.
That's some good business right there. I agree.
Well, I agree, and I don't know why.
Because everything miniaturized is better.
Well, thank God that's your attitude. But anyway, but actually, Freshwater Fly provides us with an interesting segue, because the idea of going out on a boat right now on a nice warm day and being out on the water and being able to relax, that does sound fantastic to me. Maybe it's the fact that I'm tired of doing laps around the apartment. Maybe it's the fact that I'm worried that Meeple is going to escape the first time that we both go back to work at the same time. But I gotta say, I do feel like a vacation is in order at some point.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And I am not a travel person. Like, I'm not somebody who's just like loves traveling and loves logistics. But fortunately, I married one of those people.
I like going places.
Not only does she like going places, Jess enjoys, and this explodes my brain, she likes flying.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I have no window into how that works.
Well, I mean, you go up high and you get to see the world from above the clouds. Like, one of my favorite things is flying through a thunderstorm, because then you get to see the clouds lit up from underneath.
No, outlaw that.
It's so cool.
Plus, sometimes you get some pretzels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And some whiskey.
Oh, well, yeah. I don't get anything on a flight that I have to pay for, but, a pretzel and a cranberry juice, I'm in.
Yeah.
But that does take us very well to our topic of the podcast, which is the concept of the board game vacation, right? Board game tourism. I'm very, very curious, as always, how we as a group chose to interpret our prompt this week. Because on the one hand, it feels very straightforward. On the other hand, I have been responsible for shenanigans on straightforward assignments before.
Well, this one was left up to interpretation.
And how did you interpret it?
Well, I went with games that reminded me of places that I wanted to visit. Places that are sort of wish lists of, vacations that I'll take one day.
And what's one of them? We're not, like I said, this isn't a top 5 list or anything like that. This is just sort of a more loosey, casual examination of this concept. But just to get us rolling, Jess, what's one of your games and why?
Well, my first one was Castles of Burgundy. It's a game set in the Burgundy region of France, and in it you're controlling a princedom, trying to build up settlements and castles. Each turn you'll be rolling 2 dice and then spending those to take tiles or place a tile, send goods, or take workers. And the tiles that you add to your board all do sort of different things, like getting goods or points. It's a really fun game, and I don't know, I've always had this fascination with France. It's one of those places that is so classic as far as like a destination. You've got all the great food, the beautiful places, the art. And I mean, there are so many board games set there. It makes sense. The Burgundy region in particular sounds like a lot of fun because it's well known for its wine. I think it'd be fun to do a wine tour there.
I've never been to France. I've been to a lot of places in Europe, but I've never been to France. And I guess I didn't realize it was a high priority destination for you.
It was just, I've been to like Ireland, and that's pretty much it for European countries. And so I thought it'd be fun to try a different one.
Yeah. Now, are you also intrigued by visiting castles in France? Because I know that would be particularly interesting to me too. I mean, I've been to Paris, which was fine, but I love the idea of visiting castle ruins all around the landscape of France. That seems really interesting to me.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of going off the beaten path and not visiting. I mean, sure, visit the popular places, the big cities, but like go off road and go out into the countryside, and like you say, go see some castles.
See, you're somebody who's like, I'll stay in a hostel. I'll backpack across a place.
I've done that.
Yeah, and that's a really kind of a unique and special way of seeing a place.
Yeah.
It has its drawbacks.
I'm more of a 4-star hotel person.
Yeah. I feel like I missed the hostel stage of my youth, and I don't think I could go back there. But it's something I can say I wish I had done when I was, the age for it.
See, I wish I had done it by myself, but that's a long and sordid story.
I was gonna say, are we gonna unpack that?
I don't know if you guys need to learn all about my ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, there's a history there. Some of that story even I don't know.
I like to be mysterious.
Oh boy!
But yeah, to speak to the game for a second though, Castles of Burgundy is a great game.
Oh yeah, wonderful game. One of my favorites.
I mean, it routinely sees top 10 lists that accommodate it, and it is one of these games that it recently had a new edition printed, and I think the new edition was probably a tiny bit controversial in the sense that the original game had a really terribly drab color palette, and some folks I know were critical of the new color palette because it was perhaps too bright. I disagree. I actually think that the new print looks fine, and significantly, the new printing has many of the tiny modular expansions that define the game's long lifespan all in the box. So that's like I'm at the collector brain that doesn't want to go start hunting down Spiel magazine for the 1-page bonus rules that showed up 2 years ago is glad to have everything in one box.
Right.
And it's not a big box either.
Nope.
Yeah.
Perfectly reasonable size box. Reasonable box edition.
Yeah. I would have been someone who'd be tempted to buy that because it is one of my favorite games, except that I have the original edition plus one of those fancy wooden inserts. And I think, that's it. I'm committed to this edition now, just because of that fancy wooden insert. Once you have a wooden insert, there's no going back. You can't switch out.
I mean, it's fortified.
It'll fight back.
That's right.
But Castles of Burgundy makes you think of France and wine tours and seeing the French countryside, and I think that just, oh man, you remember hotels?
It also makes me think of all the great French food.
Yeah, I can get down with that. That's a great start and a nice interpretation. Josh, how'd you interpret this assignment?
Well, I'll tell you, I looked at it more as, and my first example will be a good indication of this. I viewed this more as real places in the world that are interesting to me in how they are represented by board games, not so much in reality. So, for example, my first choice is the tropics. And the games I picked were, and really either Bora Bora, I was thinking, or the game Hawaii, any kind of tropical island situation. In real life, I have zero interest in visiting Bora Bora or Hawaii. But
Oh, man, I would visit those in a heartbeat.
Really?
Yes.
What do they have there? Beaches?
Yes.
I can't do a beach. I'm not a beach person. I mean, maybe the tropical cocktails, okay, but I don't know really what to do on a beach. You walk, you go in the water, I suppose. I don't know exactly.
I love you being off-put and confused by beach.
Yeah. Well, you never know what to do on those things. You sit down under an umbrella. I just can't comprehend it. But I know a lot of people like these beach situations and the palm trees. But, never really interested me in real life. But those games, they're so colorful. They're so bright. They're so exciting. I love the idea of this kind of island and, this kind of escape from it. It feels so far from my own experience to me that in a fictional world is very appealing to me. But in my real life, I never want to get that far from my real world. But in my brain, in my fictional little brain, in my fantasy world, I do like the idea of going far out there into exotic places. So that's my first pick, I think.
First of all, that's a really, really interesting take on the subject. Yeah, I don't see. Again, here we have the divergence in preferences. Jess is like, she heard the tropics and she's got a bag out and she's packing.
I'm a mermaid at heart.
She sure is. She's got the tail to prove it. She keeps perusing catalogs. Those things are crazy expensive.
Oh yeah.
What are expensive? Tropical islands? What are you talking about?
Mermaid tails.
Oh, mermaid tails.
Like you can get a cheap one for a couple $100, but if you want a really nice one, that can cost you like $2,000.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
You just gave Josh a problem. Like, don't do that.
Now, what do you use those mermaid tails for? Is that just for like sexy role playing or something? What do you do with those?
I mean, you can go swimming in them.
Hold on. I take umbrage to the phrase only sexy role playing. I think sexy role playing is like a valid and important thing.
Yeah. It's maybe $100 valid. I don't know, $2,000 to sexy role playing. What am I, a Rockefeller? But yeah, I sexy role play on the cheap, if you know what I mean.
I assure you, I don't.
Discount mermaids.
Discount Mermaid. That's a band name. That's got to be a band name.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's a really, like I said, Josh, that's a super, super clever way of looking at this. I've never been anywhere particularly tropical, aside maybe from, I mean, I don't even know. Well, we did go to
Mexico.
Yeah, we did go to Mexico, which is not like tropical, but
Mm.
it sure was beautiful.
I
Yes.
loved it.
Yeah, that was great. Swimming around in the cenotes and just getting to see the snorkel with the turtles. It was really, really great.
Yeah, that was delightful. Admitted. But it's also. I mean, I'm not a big
But
fan.
also, you'd rather never do it again.
I'm not a big fan of a turtle, for example. You know. What I do like is an all-you-can-eat buffet on the cruise ship. There's my action.
There's the angle. There's your way in.
Right? They should have a cruise ship buffet board game. Right? I would buy that game. Wouldn't that be great?
So, okay. Hang on. Are the players the chefs trying to keep the buffet stocked? Are the players the eaters trying to get, like, is it a set collection game?
Oh, I like it. I like it. Well, the great thing about the all you can eat situation is if the players are the people eating, it becomes sheer quantity. It becomes a numbers game by that point, right? Like the victory points simply are the food, right?
Or it could be a push your luck game.
Oh, how much you can eat before you puke?
I mean, we already have that game with tempura.
That's right. That's that cat game, right?
Yeah, where your
Yeah.
cat's eating sushi until you explode, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, you might expire in that game.
I love it.
But yeah, that's yeah, man. Cruise. Anyway, so I'm sorry.
We've been locked up too long.
We and everyone else have been locked up for a long time. All right, so I suppose at this point I have to unveil the shenanigans. I don't think these shenanigans are particularly aggressive shenanigans, though.
Not shenanigan enough.
Not particularly. So the way I chose to interpret this was to find locations in board games that I would want to visit.
Mm.
That's how I chose to come at this.
Okay.
So I did not, for example, restrict myself to real places. Instead, what I did was I looked at the games that had sort of worlds within them that I would want to visit or spend time in or whatever, either because they were beautifully presented or because the aesthetic or the concept or the story. And so, by way of example, one of them that I was thinking of was a long out of print, often sought after, but soon to be returning, if I'm not mistaken, and that's Ginkgopolis.
Oh.
Very nice.
Now, what is that world exactly? I mean, I know the game is this kind of Grail game before it was reprinted, but I don't really know what the setting is.
So the setting of the game, well, the way the game works is it's a tile placement game. It's all about area control, area influence. It has some really clever rules. Not to review the game here, but it's a really clever game. But essentially, the conceit of the game is that the world, we're far in the future, a few centuries from now, that habitable space on Earth is scarce, but humans have gotten very good at kind of balancing their way of living with the natural world. And so instead of spreading out, we rise, we grow up, our cities tower rather than sprawl. And they're all built, the ginkgo biloba, which is a tree, is the sort of like icon around which human society now builds itself. And so people build these structures that are very much in harmony with nature and making the most out of the resources that you have available to you. The game itself has sort of this tableau building thing, so that you're essentially there's a card drafting element, and you're using that to power the engine of the shared city that you're building out together. But the artwork sort of describes this futuristic but naturally harmonious architecture. And I just think it looks really beautiful. And I think it would be a really cool thing to see what architecture looks like when the overriding impetus is to be in harmony with nature.
Mm.
It sounds like a really great place to live, not just visit.
I mean, there is the caveat about it being the far future where mankind has shredded the Earth's natural resources, and so
Yeah.
we do what we're doing by necessity because otherwise there wouldn't be room for us. But
you
aside
love
from that,
apocalypse. You want to visit the post-apocalypse.
now listen, I didn't go full shenanigan because there is that game Caro.
Oh yeah.
Now
God.
that's an apocalypse that you might want to visit. That is a really pretty post-apocalyptic game.
Yeah.
It's like Mad Max with neon colors.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like I would last very long in that kind of post-apocalypse.
You
but,
wouldn't.
Yeah, no. I could visit it for like 5 minutes before I got enslaved.
Yeah, or just straight up used for fuel.
Sold for parts.
But yeah, I think I love the idea of Ginkgopolis. I love the idea of like, listen, we just have to live in harmony with nature. There's no two ways about it anymore. How do we do that? And to see what humanity comes up with, I think would be really cool.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
but that is how I'm sorry, Josh. Go.
It's like tree houses. I like that. I like a tree house.
I mean, if you think about it, it's literally tree houses. It's the ginkgo biloba tree is the symbol of the game, and it's a central concept. But yeah. So one of the places I would like to visit, not necessarily live, is Ginkgopolis. Jess, where are you headed next?
Okay, so my next one I know we've all played because we played it together, and it's Bali.
Oh, I love that game.
It's so much fun. In the game, you're all people who are sacrificing goods to the gods and spirits of your ancestors to appease them. And the whole idea is that you want to build up this collection of goods, but you don't know exactly what the value of those goods are going to be until you start sacrificing goods, because their value is going to be based on whatever goods are on the sacrificial table, basically. So every turn, you'll be collecting these goods and deciding if you're going to keep them or if you're going to put them on the table. And if you keep too many, then they're going to be too cheap. And if you put too many on the table, then you're not going to have enough to score really big. So it's all about that balance.
I think Bali is a great game. It's so colorful, first of all, as a presentation. It looks so good.
Yeah, and as we were discussing before, I really like tropical places, and Bali just has that, it's so gorgeous. The architecture there, the temples, they have these amazing beaches, and there's that I'd love to visit called the Royal Turtanganga Water Palace, which is this beautiful collection of gardens and pools, and you can actually go swimming in them. It's very tropical and beautiful. I love it.
So you're telling me that Bali is a real place?
Yeah. It's in Indonesia. It's an island.
So you're telling me that Indonesia is a real place?
Yes.
You're a teacher.
I'm a geography teacher.
Yeah. I have a narrow and deep range of knowledge.
Oh man. Yeah, that happened. Okay. I have a weird Okay, so I have a weird thing I'm going to say, and everybody's going to think I'm super weird. But granted, I work in Manhattan. I spent a good chunk of my life on Long Island. I live, in Queens. When I imagine visiting an island like, any of the islands in Hawaii or whatever, there is something about the scale of them on a map where I'm just like, there isn't enough land. Like there's just
But you can walk across the island we live on.
What did I just say?
Yes.
I don't know. There's this impression that's just like it'll just be like, we'll go to visit Hawaii and we'll be on one of the small islands, and there'll be just a particularly large wave, and then that island will go away. But you really just want to go somewhere that is just hot and bright and super colorful.
What I really want is to go someplace where I can go swimming.
That's true. That's true. She does want to be a mermaid when she grows up.
That's all I want. I just want to be able to go somewhere and go swimming.
I swear, if your third game is Catlantis, I'm gonna.
I mean, if I had been thinking the way you were, I would have said that.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, just a entire underwater kingdom full of cat mermaids. I'm in. I'm done. Just sign me up. I'll move there.
Well, well, granted, it's not a bunch of cat mermaids, but the second game that I was thinking of, again, coming from the perspective of like visiting the world of these games, it's a very different MO from my last pick. Rather than it being someplace that is like placid and peaceful, there is something about the sort of beauty and intensity of this game world that gets my attention every time. Now, mind you, I'm talking about a Red Raven game, designed and illustrated by Ryan Lockett, and you could just throw a sticky dart at his collection of games, and you'll hit a game that is gorgeous and has great world building. Like that's all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
do you just like that world, or is there a particular location or game?
There are a bunch of his games that do share a world, but the one I've chosen for this, I realize now I haven't actually said it, is the Ancient World.
Interesting.
So yeah, the Ancient World is this. It's this history. It's this long ago, possibly the ancient past of some of his other game worlds. I have no idea. Jess has a theory that they're all the same game world.
Yeah.
But in the Ancient World, there are these titans, these giant creatures that have been essentially terrorizing these tribes. But the tribes essentially are like ready to turn that around. They're ready to settle down, establish different city-states, develop their militaries, develop their economies, develop technology, and square off against these titans. Specifically, by the way, from a game mechanics perspective, I'm talking about the second edition of the Ancient World, where Lockett tweaked a few mechanics so that the titans are more active and they're more present in the game itself, essentially. And his world building is just this, like, it's so lusciously illustrated and so fascinating. I think it is a world, like, I look at the board and I look at the cards and I'm like, this would be a beautiful landscape to traverse in some way.
Yeah, I'm always impressed with his work.
Your first fantasy world was a post-apocalypse, and the next one, of all the Ryan Lockett games you could have chosen, you chose the one with the murderous titans as your
sort of a pre-apocalypse, really. It's remember, it's historical.
Sure, and I like the idea. You want a gorgeous landscape with the shadow of a murderous titan on the horizon
that we will defeat and build a glorious civilization around. But again, I'm just there for the weekend, so
you're a process man. I see that. You like to be involved in the process.
I think it's exciting.
Yeah, sure. That is exciting.
Why? Where are you going?
But is your next choice going to be Scythe by any chance?
Uh-oh. He got real quiet.
All right.
I hold on just one second. I have to quick make a note. Hang on one second. Just give me just 1 second. I got to do something real quick. Okay. Yeah, go ahead. Whatever.
Nice. My next place Has a lot of charm, although no murderous robots. And it's based on on two different games, both of which I like a lot: Broadhorns and Mississippi Queen. And I love the idea of the antique version of the Mississippi River. So, I mean, not necessarily the current version of the Mississippi River, with the waffle houses all along. Although, I love a Waffle House.
Yeah, I was gonna say you like a Waffle House.
I do like a Waffle House, but I feel like that's a different game too, and a different location. But I do like the idea of that Huck Finn period Mississippi River. That the idea of, and both these games communicate this too, just flowing down the Mississippi River, stopping at particular places. Watching the landscape go by as you very slowly, it's like a lazy river at Disney World or something, right? You just take in the world around you as you go down that river and see the sights. It's very appealing to me, that kind of slow trek south.
It sort of fits in with your whole I like cruises thing.
Yes, it's my aesthetic. Yeah. Very good, right? I like being on a boat, whether a cruise ship or a Mississippi paddle boat, and just seeing things at the medium distance. I like a medium distance situation.
Well, I think that like just a river cruise sounds phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a sponsor, but I have often kind of flirted with the idea of this Viking river cruise thing.
What? What's that?
What is it?
Yeah, it's a cruise. It's a cruise. I'm not going to turn our podcast into an ad for Viking river cruises, but it is the sort of this river cruise company that does with rivers what cruise ships do with destination cruises. You meander down a river in this really gorgeous boat, and you get to see the sights and enjoy good food, and man, that just sounds really good.
Yeah.
Are there Vikings involved, or is this just the name of the company?
Tragically, I think it's just the name of the company. Like, I don't think at any point you raid a port, for example.
So there's no pillaging as part of your tour.
More's the pity.
Yeah, unfortunately, but yeah, they actually do the Mississippi, but they're in France, they're in Russia, they're in Asia, so yeah. I mean, sometimes I plan anniversary vacations, and that's something that has occurred to me. Spoilers, I guess. Sorry, Jess.
That'd be awesome, though.
And now I'm on the hook, ladies and gentlemen.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, there's a Viking river cruise in your future.
I've got auditory evidence now.
Yeah, and man, you're the editor. There's no way I can destroy it. Well, if not on a river cruise ship, Jess, where are we going next? And what's the last stop on our tour?
Oh, well, mine is an old classic for me. I mean, not that it's an old game, but it's just I fell in love with it the first time I played it, and it's been a long time favorite ever since. And that's Tokaido.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted to go to Japan, and when I played Tokaido, the basic game is this: you are traveling down a trail, this trail called the Tokaido in Japan, and in the game you're going to these little spas or farms, or you're painting these beautiful vistas, you're meeting people, and every little experience you have gains you points. And so the whole thing is, to me, a beautiful vacation. This game is so aesthetically pleasing. It's very pretty. It's got another like sort of pastel theme. The theme itself of being traveling and your experiences are what you're getting out of the game. It all feels very relaxing to me, and I love that. And that's sort of what I want out of a trip to Japan if I ever go. I'd love to take a walking tour of the Tokaido. I know that a lot of the trail is gone now, but you can still get these walking tours. They'll take you from Kyoto to Edo, and you can see some of the small shrines that are still there. You can get these beautiful views of Mount Fuji, and it sounds so relaxing to me.
Yeah, the philosophy of that game has always been very appealing to me too. I mean, it's similar to my Mississippi fantasy, right? Mississippi River fantasy, where you're just going at a very easy, slow pace, seeing what you pass by, observing things. Nothing terribly exciting, stopping off in different places. Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. That's very appealing.
Mine just involves more exercise.
Yes, because you're actually walking. I'm just sitting on the deck of a paddle wheel boat.
Where are you going last, Josh?
Well, so my last place is a kind of Akrotiri Santorini situation. I love
Very
the
nice.
idea of a version of Greece that is again, I like islands. There's something about islands and a whole string of islands and a series of islands that you could just hop from island to island is really interesting to me on a small boat. And the idea of rocky islands seems very nice to me. But again, that more ancient version. I like the idea of ancient ruins, visiting ancient ruins, discovering, getting kind of lost among these islands and ruins. Being an explorer, which is something that again I would never be in real life. I have no interest in actually exploring anything where there would be any danger of me getting lost. But in my imagination, there's something very appealing about that. So I like that version of Greece, that kind of slightly antique version of Greece.
I can get behind that. We've been playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I've been really on a Greece kick lately.
Oh yeah.
Actually, it feels like just the popular like fantasy fiction that I've been consuming lately is just all based in Greece and Greek mythology. I played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, been playing the heck out of Hades, looking at the new, clearly, definitely not Greece expansion for Dungeons and Dragons. It's just kind of everywhere right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Greece is another place in the real world that I've never been. And much like France, it's a place that my parents went on some awesome vacation at some point and didn't take me, and that was cool.
Didn't you hate traveling when
I do. I still do. Oh yeah, no, I have. Don't ask my folks about me and summer vacations. Like, for every kid who like got dragged to some themed vacation out in the American Midwest and hated it, that was me, except traveling around Europe. Like I was such an ingrate. I mean now if somebody came to me and was like, hey, do you want 3 weeks all expenses paid in a tiny hilltop town in Sicily where nothing can bother you, I'd be like, yes. Yes,
just for a change of scenery.
Sounds great. Can you throw in some murder robots?
Well, nowhere is perfect, man. But I think my last choice is probably close to it, actually.
And what's that?
So we all know that I'm a sucker for a resort, right? I mean, kidding aside, one of the challenges for me when we travel is that I'm not relaxed when I'm dealing with logistics. I'm not really comfortable until I'm where I'm supposed to be. So until we're on the plane, until we've made the flight, until we've caught the bus, until we're at the hotel and checked in, like I have very hard time relaxing. So the nice thing about a resort is that you go there and then you don't have to think about anything for the rest of the time that you're there. And that has a real appeal to me. And in the real world, this translates into trips to Disney World that Jess and I've had like a really fantastic time at over the years. And Josh, I know that you're a big fan as well and travel there.
Yeah.
And so there was a moment where I was sort of like flirting with the idea of having, Disney's Villainous as a series as one of my ideas, but that's really just a manifestation of the fact that I want to go to Disney World. That has less to do with visiting the game worlds themselves. But keeping in the spirit of the way I've interpreted this list, and with the idea of wanting to visit a place in a game, what better game that has a sort of resort / theme park that I want to go visit than Bärenpark?
Oh boy.
Oh.
I mean, think about it. It's basically a big resort where all of the features and attractions are live bears.
Oh.
Makes sense. Just another beautiful full of danger that you want to go to.
Yeah, exactly. Another gorgeous place that is just absolutely lethal in its design. Bärenpark is a game where we fit together tiles in the Tetris fashion, trying to build the best bear-centric theme park and visitor center that you possibly can. Aside from that, I just I just think it would be really funny and really fun to go visit a place that was just like there's just like Kodiaks everywhere and grizzlies and polar bears and pandas and stuff. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Sure, all bears all the time.
Not see, when you phrase it that way, I mean, whatever. You like what you like.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to know. I'd be fascinated by the accoutrement of a place like Bärenpark. Like when you go to their little restaurants, is it all bear-themed pizza places and everything, right?
Oh, it has to be, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going if it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it would strain the efforts of the imagination to come up with constantly new bear-themed stuff.
And yet, if they managed it, could there be a more perfect place?
Hats off to them, really. I like to see that. Yeah.
I mean, probably, but yeah, bears.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I think it was either this or Las Vegas, man. Like I just
Yeah.
want to go a place where I can just relax and not have to think about anything, and just maybe if there's a bunch of bears there, that'd be cool.
I like it.
Well, as always, we've had some input from our fans. One of our patrons, Ryan R., actually, you almost gave me his entire list, Andrew, because he said Ginkgopolis, just to see a functioning ecological utopia.
Hey, there it is.
I cannot believe that was an overlap. That's
and above and below.
Yep. Yeah, above and below. Absolutely.
So, you guys are thinking on the same page there.
Now that one has trolls instead of murder robots, right? Is that
yeah.
Got some like underground creatures of some sort.
Yeah, that you can befriend if your stats are high enough.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So they're not as murderous.
No, just go work on your stats before you go on vacation.
You just got to bring the right people. Well, Ryan's a friend as well as a patron, and I'm pleased that I've got some crossover with him. Were those the two that he suggested?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so right.
Uh-huh. You guys can go on vacation together then, I guess.
You don't want to come to Bärenpark?
I mean, yeah, I'll go to the Bärenpark.
No.
Sure.
Jess and I will be in the Bora of my mind.
I was about to make some comment about like while in real life you sit with the windows closed and the air conditioning turned on, but then I remembered you don't use your air conditioner.
Nope, it's like Bora in my apartment all summer long.
All summer long, baby. Well, I think that the three ways that we came at this were all really interesting in that they gave us different things. Did anybody have any like honorable mentions that they just want to toss in? Because for me, the other two that were sort of on my short list that didn't make it to the really short list were a game that we talk about kind of all the time, which is Abyss. Right? The world building, the artwork in that game is just so fascinating. To see this like alien underwater kingdom would be really cool. I keep thinking that might just be fun to run a tabletop role playing game set there.
Murderous mermaids.
Murderous mermaid. Well, that could potentially be spoilers. Let's hang on to that.
I like that art, but I do not want to. I don't want to meet any of those people. Any of those things.
I appreciate that while expressing disdain, you still referred to them as people. I appreciate that. Let's not dehumanize the non-human aquatic species. And the other honorable mention that was very nearly on my list was something like weirdly aspirational, not in our lifetimes, but maybe at some point, and that's terraforming Mars.
Oh,
because maybe one day you could be like, yeah, I'm taking the family and we're going to spend 10 days on Mars.
Yeah.
That sort of lines up with my other special mention, I guess, which would be Space Park.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, talk about a colorful, pretty game.
Yeah, I think that would be a fun tour of like going to all the different planets.
Yeah, that's interesting. I thought about, just space as a destination too, but then I didn't feel like I could include it because I don't really want to go to space.
I don't really want to go to space. Josh Gaylord, 2021.
But I thought about some other, I thought about the old west / ghost towns of someplace like Carson City or Dice Town or something like that. I thought about Bruxells 1893. That seems interesting. That's even just like a real place. There's a real place, unmodified by time or anything. Like I'd just like to go to Brussels. If it's anything like what it is in that game, which admittedly took place in 1893, so maybe it's not the real Brussels.
I mean,
probably not.
It's hard to say. Google's right there, but I guess we'll find out someday. Maybe that's what we should do. I mean, listen, I have fully, honestly, at various points along the way, been like, I gotta take Jess to Japan. Like, she would absolutely lose her mind if I told her that I had planned a vacation for us there. And then I find out that it's a 16-hour direct flight. And I'm just like, it's so sad that we're gonna die before we go to Japan. Like, it's just not happening.
They have entire islands dedicated to cats. Entire islands.
Oh, boy.
But what about the bear park, though?
Yeah, they said they'd go to your park.
They probably have one over there.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely do have like raccoon parks and fox parks. Why not bear park?
Oh, yeah, they got a bear park. No question.
Well, it looks like I got to start planning a vacation. So let's kick it over to you, listeners. What are some destinations inspired by your board game collection that you would like to visit? You can take Jess's approach of places in the real world that the games have reminded you of. You can take Josh's approach of the idealized forms of vacations that you have absolutely no intention of ever taking in real life. Or you could take my approach of just places in games that you think look really interesting and would like to see for one reason or another. Please let us know in either the comments where you're listening, or you can always yell at us on Twitter. Please don't actually yell at us. We're very sensitive. But we would love to hear from you. And of course, we would also love to hear any suggestions for podcast topics, games you'd like to hear us review, or really just, any sort of conversation talking point that you want us to discuss. Until then, thank you so much for listening. This has been the Gameosity Podcast. I'm Andrew.
I'm Jess.
I'm Josh.
And we will see you next game.
Bye.
Bye.
This episode of the Gameosity Podcast is brought to you by our fans on Patreon. Their support makes everything we do possible. If you'd like to join Team Gameosity, then please check out our page at patreon.com/Gameosity. Thanks, and we'll see you next game.